Hello, welcome back to my channel, A Little Bit of Everything, where I talk about a little bit of everything. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a subject that I've been interested in for a while. We all know the Kardashians. They have become pop culture icons whether we like them or not. Their original show ran for 20 seasons, and recently they started a new show on Hulu, which is basically the exact same thing but with better editing. Throughout the run of the original show and all of its spin-offs, something that I realized is how much of the relationship between the sisters is directly affected and influenced by the relationship with Kris. I'm not saying that Kris is solely responsible for the good or bad relationship between the sisters, since the reason behind most of their arguments are rarely tied to Kris directly, but I do think that the relationship to her influences the alliances between the sisters. So in this video, I'm going to go over the relationship that each sister has with Kris and then the relationship that they have with each other. I'm only going to be talking about the three Kardashians, Kim, Kourtney, and Khloe, and I might do a separate video about Kylie and Kendall because I think that the relationship is more influenced by the public than by Kris. So let me know if that's something that you would want to watch. I want to have a little disclaimer right now. I obviously don't know the Kardashians. I only know of them what they show us on their very edited, semi-scripted, acted reality show and their very curated social media presence. So none of the things that I'm about to say here are facts. They're just my opinion based on the things that I've seen, and you do not have to take it to heart. Let me know what you think of all this. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss another video. And let's get started. Before we actually start talking about the Kardashians, we first need to talk about narcissism. The term narcissism comes from a 1st century book by the Roman poet Ovid called Metamorphosis Book 3. This book tells the mythical story of a handsome young man called Narcissus who rejects the advances of many potential lovers. When Narcissus rejects the nymph Echo, who was cursed to only echo the sounds that others made, the gods punished Narcissus by making him fall in love with his own reflection in a pool of water. When Narcissus discovers that the object of his love cannot love him back, he slowly pants away and dies. Narcissism is described as a self-centered personality style characterized as having an excessive interest in one's physical appearance and an excessive preoccupation with one's own needs, often at the expense of others. Narcissism within itself is not good or bad. A certain level of narcissism is healthy and normal in all of us. It helps us develop good self-esteem, and with time it evolves to include affection for others. However, it could also evolve into its most extreme levels, which is how we get narcissistic personality disorder. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 5th edition, DSM-5, describes narcissistic personality disorder as possessing at least 5 of the following 9 criteria. 1. A grandiose sense of self-importance. 2. Preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. 3. Believing that they are special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high-status people. 4. Requiring excessive admiration. 5. A sense of entitlement. 6. Being exploitative of others to achieve their own goals. 7. Lacking empathy. 8. Often being envious of others and believing that others are envious of them. And 9. Showing arrogant behavior or attitude. In this case, Kris Jenner had to go through a psychological evaluation during her divorce, in which she was described as demanding, manipulative, and having a Cinderella attitude where situations resulted in everyone living happily ever after. She was also described as narcissistic with a marked elevation of the narcissistic scale. Narcissism can be expressed in multiple ways. The ones that are relevant with this video and that are shown by Kris Jenner, in my opinion, are sexual narcissism. This is an inflated sense of one's own sexual ability or entitlement, which normally leads the narcissist to have extramarital affairs. Celebrity narcissism is a form of narcissism that develops in late adolescence or adulthood, aided by fans, employees, and tabloids that make celebrities feel like they are more important than regular people. Collective narcissism, which is a type of narcissism where an individual has an inflated self-love for their own group. And parental narcissism. This is the one that we will see throughout the video, and is when parents see their kids as an extension of themselves and expect them to act in ways to support the parents' needs. This leads to parents becoming possessive of their children and their kids leaving behind their own wants and needs to satisfy their parents. Within a family with one or two narcissistic parents, children can hold different roles. When it comes to the Kardashians, these roles are: the scapegoat child is considered to be the black sheep of the family. The narcissistic parent is overly critical and cruel to this child and oftentimes humiliates them in front of the whole family. The scapegoat child is the one most likely to act out, rebel, and argue with the narcissistic parent, and is the kid with the most freedom and more opportunities to physically move away from the parent and develop a sense of self. Kris and Kourtney have had the most antagonistic relationship in the entire family, I think. Kourtney has a very strong resentment towards Kris to this day and blames her for destroying what she probably saw as a perfect family. For those who don't know, Kris and Robert Kardashian Sr. were married from 1978 to 1991, when they got a divorce after Kris cheated on him in 1989. According to Rob Sr.'s diary entries, Kris would leave the kids alone for days to be with Todd, the man that she cheated on Rob with, and she was also allegedly physically abusive towards both Kourtney and Kim. Also, according to Rob Sr.'s diaries, Kourtney was the most affected by this whole thing. She became a more reclusive person and just kept things to herself more than she did prior to the divorce. Kourtney has made comments about the affair. In one occasion, she asked Kris if she had fucked a guy in a bathroom, and Kris said, "I am married," or "I've been married for 20 years. And Kourtney told her, "That's never stopped you before." Another time, Kourtney called out Kris directly for having an affair while married after Kris tried to compare Kourtney's relationship with her at the time boyfriend June's to her relationship with Todd, the man she cheated on Robert with. To which Kourtney responded by saying, "I'm not married and I'm not having an affair."
You have your own Todd right now.
No, I actually don't. I'm actually not married.
Right, but
and I'm not having an affair. You can't compare one to the other.
I think this whole thing really influenced Kourtney's relationship with Scott, and it's probably why she tried to make things work for so long, because she didn't want to do to her kids what Kris did to her, and that is separate their parents, even though it's truly Scott's fault, but still, she probably would have blamed herself. She wanted her kids to have a traditional two-parent household, and she specifically didn't want to be the one who caused the breakup by giving up on Scott. It doesn't seem like Kourtney has really forgiven Kris yet, and who knows if she ever will. She's definitely the sister who respects Kris the least and is the most willing to go against her. Kourtney's quote-unquote laziness and uninterest in hustle culture probably contributes to the friction between the two. She does not want to follow Kris's lead. She wants to do her own thing without her. Kris has actually said that Kourtney is the hardest sister to manage, probably due to her need to always go against her mother. I believe Khloe fulfills two different roles in this narcissistic family: the invisible and the caretaker child. Started with the invisible child, like its name suggests, this child is invisible, they are neglected, and they are ignored by the narcissistic parent. On the other hand, the caretaker child is the emotional support of the family, and this is a role that Khloe fills the most. They are good at listening and supporting others during their hardships, even though they don't get the same in return at all. This child becomes a rescuer, getting into toxic and abusive relationships because they feel it's their duty to fix the other person. They can also be parentified, which is basically when a child takes the parental responsibility over their siblings and parents. The relationship between Khloe and Kris is difficult. No matter if you believe that Khloe is Rob's daughter or not, it is undoubtedly that Kris treated Khloe differently than the rest of her sisters. Starting with Khloe overhearing Kris saying that she did a nose job when she was still a kid, followed by Khloe being the only sister not to get a card for her 16th birthday, and Kris buying a card for herself and having it delivered at the house during Khloe's birthday. Kris allowing Khloe to leave high school so that she could serve as a nanny to Kylie and Kendall while Kris just went out and partied. Kris trying to force Khloe to take a DNA test on TV, furthering the idea that Khloe isn't a Kardashian, and God knows what else she's done. It is safe to say that Khloe had more than enough reason not to like her mother. And she didn't. Much like Kourt, Khloe too was very antagonistic towards Kris, making very slut-shamey comments about Kris having multiple baby daddies and showing a similar lack of respect for her mother. I think that the slut-shaming comes from a different place. While Kourtney is hurt because of Kris cheating on Robert, Khloe is hurting because she physically looks very different than her sisters. And there's this constant never-ending rumors of her parenting, and who knows, maybe she really isn't a Kardashian and she knows it and she's very upset by it. I don't know, that is a possibility. Much like with Kourtney, I think that this has led Khloe to stay in unhealthy relationships to prevent her children from going through what she went through, which is why she keeps trying to make things with Tristan work. She wants to have more kids, clearly, but she wants, and she actually needs, for them to 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, have the same father and look as similar as possible in order to prevent them from going through this. Whatever the reason behind Khloe's estate for her mother was, that seems to be, for the most part, forgiven and forgotten. After Khloe's divorce from Lamar and the debut of her quote-unquote revenge body, her relationship with Kris started to get a lot better. I'm guessing that not only Khloe forgave her mother, but Kris also probably started being nicer to her since Khloe was now pretty. I also think that Khloe's closeness to Kris is in some way a safety net for True. I think by now Khloe understands to some degree that much like her, True looks different than her cousins. And after all the very disgusting comments that were made about her when this photo of her, Chicago, and Stormi was posted, she knows that True might suffer the same treatment that she did, and thinks that maybe if she's nice to Kris and she fixes their relationship, that might ensure a better treatment and more importance for her daughter from Kris in the future. But that's just my personal conspiracy. Much like Khloe, I think Kim fits two roles, those being the golden and the responsible child. Starting with the golden child, this is the child that is seen by the narcissistic parent as an extension of themselves. This child is the one that represents the parents' perfect image of themselves and are chosen for exploitation as they either hold a lot of beauty, talent, or intelligence that gives the narcissistic parent bragging rights. On the other hand, the responsible child develops a perfectionistic nature and aspires to have the most success in whatever field they want to take in life. This child depends on outside validations, so they never truly feel happy with their achievements. Because of their perfectionist nature, they are very critical of themselves and others, don't take criticism well, and think that no one can do things as good as them. These children tend to be very insecure deep down inside, constantly afraid that what they're doing isn't good enough, and whenever they achieve a goal, they move on to the next one. I don't think that there's actually much to say about Kris and Kim, even if you don't really watch the show or keep up with the Kardashians, pun intended. I'm sure you've heard about Kim being Kris's favorite. I don't think that Kris has ever actually said this out loud, but it has been voiced by the sisters, including Kim. Kim is the pearl of Kris's eyes. They have the most similar aspirations, those being fame and money, and thus from the very beginning these two were a match made in heaven to achieve just that. You guys probably know by now how Kim became famous, that being a sex tape with her then boyfriend Ray J that got leaked without their knowledge or approval. But in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of debate and theories about how it actually came to be. Allegedly, Kim and Kris purposefully and willingly decided to record the sex tape and then started to try and sell it, but it got rejected because it was too extreme. So they went back with Ray J, they re-recorded it, and that's how we got the sex tape that everybody knows. Whichever version of events you believe, afterwards we got Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and the rest is history. The amount of success that Kim has managed to achieve with the help of Kris shows how good of a team they are. Kim was a blessing for Kris. She would not have had the same amount of success with Kourtney, who was antagonistic towards her, isn't willing to blindly follow her, and isn't as interested in hustle culture as Kim, or with Khloe, whom she considered to be the ugly one and put on the back burner for so long. And Kim, at the same time, probably wouldn't have had the same level of success if she had a mother who had, a little bit more morals than Kris. And I think that because of this, they are thankful for each other. Kim is the only one out of the three sisters who never really has any conflict with Kris. The only one who truly shows a lot of respect for her, not only as a mother, but as a manager. And the only one who doesn't seem to resent her in present day. So now let's get into the relationship between the sisters, starting with Khloe and Kourtney, whom had a similar antagonistic relationship with Kris. They were the closest out of the three. They could bond over the way in which the divorce between Kris and Rob affected them, the way in which Kris treated them, and on top of that, they could also bond over their very dysfunctional relationships with men. This was in direct contrast to Kim, who, like it was mentioned before, was Kris's favorite daughter. The other two sisters would constantly team up against Kim all the time. That's how we got this ever so famous "don't be fucking rude" clip. And that is just one of the many times in which the two of them basically ganged up on Kim. However, once Khloe divorced Lamar, she lost weight and developed a better relationship with Kris. There really wasn't much for her and Kourtney to bond over, and there was also not a lot for Khloe and Kim to be against each other for. So, as Khloe's relationship with Kris shifted, so did her relationship with Kourtney and Kim. Now it was Khloe and Kim who were constantly taunting and ganging up against Kourtney. Much of the storyline of the last couple of seasons of Keeping Up with the Kardashians was that Khloe and Kim were upset with Kourtney because she didn't want to share her relationship with her then boyfriend Junes, which in my opinion is a bit unfair given how much of her relationship with Scott she shared in the show, while Khloe hid all of her problems that she had with Lamar. And many people, me included, believe that the reason why they wanted to make Kourtney share so much of her life is because they didn't want to share their own issues with Tristan and Kanye. All of this eventually culminated on the fight between Kourtney and Kim, in which Kim called her the least interested to look at. For those who haven't watched that episode, the whole thing happened because Kim wanted the family to have a Christmas photo and made the decision that she was going to take care of all of the planning for it, even though she knew that she would be very busy. And then she got mad when Kourtney refused to change her schedule to make it easier for everyone, something that Kim thinks that she should have done since she's the one with the least work, but Kourtney believes that her schedule was just as important as everybody else's and should be respected. This then led up to a physical fight between the two of them at Khloe's house, which was also instigated by Kim, with Khloe and Kris standing by Kim's side during both fights and agreeing with her that Kourtney was being lazy. I think it's also important to note that Kourtney and Khloe have their own issues separate from this, because Kourtney was very rude to Khloe for a moment, and for what I remember, it was always completely unprovoked. So that was another thing causing tension between the two. These days, it seems that the relationship between the sisters is less tense, and so does the relationship between Kourtney and Kris. I think that it probably has something to do with her being in a happy relationship with Travis Baker, which is something that she didn't have before. Both of her relationships with Scott and Junes were quite toxic, so maybe now that she is happy and relaxed, her relationship with the rest of her family can be better. So my final thoughts on all of this is that I think Kris has done an insane amount of damage to the relationships of her daughters because they were always in competition for her love and attention. She very obviously favors some of her daughters over the others and gives them special treatment, which is of course going to cause problems between the sisters, because the ones that are in favor will defend Kris and will always be by her side, and the ones who aren't in favor are going to be on the opposite side, which is something they're doing well into their 40s. And I kind of think that Kris is going to do the exact same thing to her grandchildren. I don't know why, I just have that feeling. I also don't think that the sisters really hate each other. I think they had, for all their privileges, they had a very difficult childhood with someone like Kris as their mother. And I think that because of that, they've built a lot of resentment towards each other that they haven't really let off until like very recently. The last few seasons of Keeping Up with the Kardashians were very tense because they were always fighting over something. Mainly, you know, Khloe, Kris, and Kim against Kourtney, and it was constant. Like, there were very few episodes where they weren't arguing about something. So I think it wasn't until recently that they were able to let off some of that resentment that they had built for each other, and maybe now that they've done that, their relationship can be better. But who knows? The new show is still airing, and we haven't really seen much of the sisters together, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. That was all for today's video. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think of all this. Turn on the notifications so that you don't miss my next video, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!